Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope that you are all well and safe and taking care of yourselves. If you're new to my channel, my name is Emily and today I want to share a VR to Brian at Pappa Squirrel, and the prompt is, if all of my decks disappeared, what would I repurchase right away? Or something to that effect. I will link Pappa Squirrel's original video below. I know there have been so many VRs to this and it's been so much fun watching everyone's. Actually, the last few videos I've watched, Julie from Peekaboo Rose was one of them actually, but I know someone else mentioned this, and it is that literally your answers would change like the next day or even in a few hours. And I think that I want to just say that because I have all the decks I have because I love all the decks I have, pretty much. There are a couple that I am hoping to swap or remove from my collection, but pretty much everything I love and work with, and some things I work with more than others, and there are some decks that I have as well that aren't available, like the Bone Stone, so I'm not going to be including those here because if I literally lost all my decks right now, I wouldn't be able to go out and buy the Bone Stone right now. So I'm going to just mention decks that I think are still in print, but if I'm wrong about that, then obviously I wouldn't be able to pick them up. I'm not going to give myself a limit, so I don't know how many decks. I've kind of got a few in mind already, but like they're all around me, so I'm just gonna pick them and tell you exactly what decks they would be. So yeah, anything that's out of print, like my Celtic Wisdom Tarot, which is obviously really special to me, I'm not going to include that because I wouldn't be able to buy it like right away. I would want to get it pretty much as soon as I possibly could, but I just think it kind of complicates it if I'm including stuff that is out of print already. So I'm not going to do that because it just confuses me. So really, that's just the reason why. First up, the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. I've shared this quite a lot recently. If it's still available. Now, I'm not sure if it's even still available because I know this was the second edition and I know this is limited, so it may not even be available anymore, so this might be one that I literally wouldn't be able to get, but if I could, I would buy this again straight away. This is one that was new in my collection this year. It is such a beautiful, beautiful deck. It's based on the work of Adillion Rodin and it is by M. Wotherspoon. It was available on Etsy. I hope it's still available now. It may not be. So this may not be one I could pick up, but I just thought I'd mention it here because I'm not entirely sure if it is still available or not. Next up, a deck I use all the time, my Philakos Tarot. I believe this is still available. This is an independent deck as well. This is such a special deck for me, and I use this in my challenge VR to Sadhana, and it was the Compassion Challenge, and I've made a video response to that challenge as well. So if you wanted to check that out, I go into depth about some of the cards and the meanings that came out for me during that challenge. It really helped me to bond more with this deck. It is one of my favourite decks in my collection, a deck I use really frequently, especially more intuitively than say a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, so this would be a must to pick up like straight away. I wonder what the psychology is behind like what I would pick up straight away. It would be like, what can't I live without, I think is the thing, because I would want to pick up everything eventually. But there are certain decks, like say I haven't used the Sassurabito in a few months, so I could probably wait and pick that up in a few months. But then I think like all the decks that are out on my reading table, I don't use them every day, all of them, but they're out on my reading table because I want to reach for them easily, so pretty much everything on my reading table I would have to pick up again really quickly. This is the Moon deck. This is one of my favourite oracles. I don't use this every full moon or every new moon, but I just like to be able to pull it out whenever, because I do work with the moon frequently in a magical way. I wouldn't call myself a lunar witch, but I think most witches I know do work with the moon, and I know I do quite frequently. So I will sort of decide what spell work I'm going to use along with the moon cycles. So I will tailor workings, magical workings along with the moon cycles and such, and I am very much invested in learning about astrology, so all of the moon phases really are significant for me, and what sign the moon is in on any particular day, and learning about planetary hours and such. It has a lot of value for me at bringing in astrology as well as the moon, particularly in my magic, so having this deck is really important for me. Another deck I'd want straight away is my Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith. I pull this out really frequently. I use it to study with, I use it to read with. It pretty much features in most of my videos, to be honest, because it is such a vital part of my practice. I first learnt with Rider-Waite-Smith, as many people do. First deck I had was the original Rider-Waite-Smith pack, I think it's called, and I think that people talk about the quality of the pictures not being as good as like the Centennial. I definitely prefer the Centennial, but I have definitely got sentimental attachment to that original tarot pack, so I would probably get both of them immediately, no questions asked. The Marielle is new in my collection, but it is fast becoming one of my very favourite decks. It is widely available, easy to get on Amazon, so I would pick this up immediately. I feel like this is such an important deck for every kind of reading, really. General readings, as well as like shadow work readings and introspective readings. It's a really, really personal deck. I think it's just beautiful. I find there's a lot of comfort in some of the images, but also it's very confronting in many ways. It tells it like you need to hear it. It feels very brutally honest sometimes, but you know, I do think there's gentleness to it as well. I think there's so much spirit to it, and I haven't yet read the book. I know that Jen at Jen's Balanced Tarot has done some study around Marielle, and Chris from Elemental Cartomancy is planning a study group, so I'm really, really excited to get on board with learning with other members of the community as well. So I'm really, really excited to read this book. I think it will really add to the value that I get from this deck already. I would buy this immediately. For quite a long time I thought I was a druid craft kind of girl, and I am, but the Wildwood, it just takes the place of it in a way. It doesn't take the place of it. I still love the Druidcraft, I really, really do, but for me, the Wildwood, I have this out on my reading table. I use it really frequently. The more I learn about the Ogham and Celtic tree magic and connecting to trees locally to me, the more that this resonates. This is such a beautiful deck, and I know that there are people who are doing study groups for this deck as well, which is also something I'd like to do. I've had this deck for maybe a year and a half now, so I've worked with it quite a bit. I like working with it all year round, to be honest with you, but yeah, I would love to get to know this deck more as well. The book is fantastic. There's so much depth and knowledge in the book, but again, there are other books going deeper and deeper into this. Sadhana did a series of videos about this deck which were so great, because she talked about the Wheel of the Year and the way that the cards relate to the Wheel of the Year and what they correspond with, and that was really, really enlightening as well. So this is another deck that I'm really excited to go deeper into, and I need it. I need it with me all the time, basically. Another deck that I would have to buy immediately is the Herbcrafters Tarot. This is such an important deck for me, both for tarot and for magical practice. I use this a lot for like informing magical practice and for kind of like studying different herbs. I just find the illustrations so beautiful. I don't actually have the Gaian Tarot, but I really would like to get a copy of the Gaian Tarot. I really think that I would enjoy using that as well. Also illustrated by Joanna Powell Colbert. So I think that using that deck with this deck would be really, really powerful. But for now, this is just, it's so important in my practice. And as a personal reader, it is just one of my favorite decks. Again, lots of people love this deck and are doing studies with this deck. I know Kim at Abundant Life Tarot is doing a fantastic study group with this, so definitely go over and check out some of her videos on this deck if you have it or if you're interested in it. It's such a beautiful deck and it's one I would have to have straight away. The Witch's Wisdom by Phyllis Curott is another deck that I would have to have straight away. Again, this is kind of one of those decks that you need to go deep into, and I use this for sort of specific kinds of readings. I often use this around Sabbats actually, and also for like healing and such, but it is such a witchy deck that it resonates so deeply, and I don't think I'd want to have any time away from it, to be honest with you. I think I need it with me, and I pretty much always refer to the book because I love Phyllis Curott's writing. Her book, Witchcrafting, was such an important book for me. There was so much in there that resonated for me, so I find her writing just fantastic, and this is just a really important deck for me. Another deck I'd have to get straight away because I just absolutely adore it and I find it really brilliant to read with is the Llewellyn Tarot. This isn't one I've had for very long, but it would be one that I would just want to get straight away. I love the backs. This is definitely one that I watched on Dawn Michelle's channel for so long on Boho Tarot. I believe this is Dawn's absolute favourite deck, so I've always just loved the look of this deck, but I didn't get it because I have Legend the Arthurian Tarot at first, and I thought that that kind of filled the gap, but that is more specific, whereas this, although it is based on Welsh mythology, I think that this is much more user-friendly for day-to-day. And it was one of those decks that, you know, because it's always available, I just didn't get around to picking it up until this year. So it may not always be available, but at the moment it is, and so I would have to get it again straight away. I have this out on my table all the time, so since getting it, it's just been one of my favourite. It's so beautiful. I mean, look at that. Three of Pentacles, what a beautiful depiction. That is just stunning. I can totally see why this is Dawn Michelle's whole deck. I can really see that. I talk about this deck all the time on my channel because it is one of the main decks in my collection. It is the other main deck in my collection. It's the Lightseers. This I use so frequently for myself and for others. I find this is my go-to really when I'm reading for others, other than the Rider-Waite-Smith, if I have certain friends that would rather not see kind of confronting imagery. And so for that reason, I just feel like this is such an easy read and I'm just so used to it. It is definitely just a really important deck in my collection. I could not be without this for very long at all. I would need it pretty much immediately, and it's definitely not my soul deck, but it is absolutely one of my favorites. I just couldn't live without this deck, honestly. It's an incredible deck, honestly. Even though I talk about this so much, I don't think I give this deck enough credit, because this actually was a formative deck for me, and I am going to do a VR response to that hashtag as well by Patrick from The Living Wheel and Kasha from Tarot Map. I will do a VR to that as well, but this is definitely a formative deck for me, from stepping away from like Rider-Waite-Smith, because this was one of the first decks that, you know, I branched out with. So this is a powerful deck for me. It's one that I have to have. And I was thinking that maybe I could live for a few months without this deck, but I don't think I could. It's the Moonchild. Again, it's another one a little bit like the Lightseers. It fills that space where it was a formative deck for me, and I can't be without it for too long because I have a connection to this deck. It's just not like any other deck, you know. It is connected. This actually, you know, I say I don't have a soul deck. I say if I had a soul deck it would be my Celtic Wisdom, but in a way part of me thinks this is a soul deck for me, and I find it incredibly beautiful. But even like just holding it, like it has this power for me. I've talked about this before, but there are scenes in this deck that just feel like memories for me, and like dreamscapes. There are certain cards, you know, like with these sorts of scapes that I've traversed in my dreams. I know I have. So for me, it's just incredibly powerful, and it's almost like Danielle Noel, the creator, like tapped into some kind of like archetypal collective unconscious knowledge and understanding. This is just, it gives me goosebumps. I couldn't be without it. Another one like that is the Deviant Moon. I don't think I could be without this either, because this is one of the most important decks for me for shadow work and introspective work and just personal soul growth and development. And it's the one that I turn to when I have sticky issues or things that I want to solve or unpack, and it is beautiful and kind of confronting at the same time. I don't really find it confronting anymore. This is the thing about this deck for me. I talked about this so fondly recently on my channel, and I do feel so close to this deck, but you know, when I first saw this deck for quite a long time, I didn't want it. I didn't like it. I felt really confronted by this imagery. I studied art at A-level, and I remember studying an artist called Otto Dix who created these really kind of grotesque paintings. It reminded me of that, but like I just found it so confronting. But it's almost like the power of shadow work, you know, when you actually just face it and you just sort of talk to it, like ask it what it needs. It's almost like that. It's like what happened with the deck was what happens to your shadow when you just face it and you just ask it what it needs and just be real with it, and then let it kind of reintegrate with you. It's almost like that. It's like literally the deck contains you as you work through these things. And so for that, I couldn't be without this deck for very long at all. And the art is just, I find it so beautiful now. It is beautiful. It's a different kind of beauty though. It's a different kind of beauty to like the Moonchild, but I couldn't be without this for very long at all. Another one like that is the Nekoleta Chicoli tarot. I don't often talk about this, but I use this in a very personal way. I use this for inner child work and readings about personal development and shadow work where I feel very vulnerable. So I used this quite recently actually, and the messages were just phenomenal, and they've actually really helped me so much since using this deck for that specific spread. It was so powerful. It was literally like medicine. I find it so beautiful as well. So I couldn't be without this deck for very long, because although I don't use this for like daily draws or even weekly readings, I use this for specific types of readings, and I need to have it because I need to know that I can do that whenever I need to. So I love this. I love this deck so much. It is really important to have in my collection all the time. Another deck that I'd want to pick up straight away is the Tree Whisper Oracle by Mags, the Woodland Hag. Unfortunately, Mags has removed her channel. However, she does have a new website, which I will try to remember to link below. And this deck, for me, I think since growing closer to the trees in my local area, this deck has been so important to use with certain tarot decks, and it just pairs so beautifully with pretty much all of my green and witchy tarot decks. And this is always out again, just fantastic words, and it's a really personal deck again as well. I don't know if I would be able to get this because if Max has any available, but oh my goodness me, at that. It's one I just couldn't be without. It's such a fantastic deck. This is so important in my collection. Another one is the Hedgewich Botanical Oracle. This is by CeeLo Thompson, the same creator who created the Line Tarot. This is another deck I really like to use for spellcraft, like informing spellcraft, and I find it really beautiful to flip through. If I feel like I need some plant spirit energy on a particular day, I really like to refer to it, and just to flip through to look at the images as well. I do that as well because they're so beautiful. Green witchery, green witchcraft is definitely a part of my practice, so I think I do resonate with the term green witch. I do resonate with the term hearth witch and kitchen witch, all of those kinds of hearth, homey, home witch, you know, cottage witch, all of those things, they resonate. And because I live in the countryside in Devon in England, these kinds of decks, they sing for me, and they're really important in my practice because I do use a lot of dried and fresh herbs in my practice with my magic, so it's really important for me to have. Another deck I would get straight away is a deck that only I have because I created it. This is a deck that I made on Printer Studio, and it's not a deck that I've made available for purchase or anything, but it is a deck that I made for the Morrigan, for communication with the Morrigan, but it was kind of channeled. It was an experience that kind of just happened. I know that sounds strange, but during journey work with the Morrigan, it was something that was kind of agreed upon, and I found the images within a few weeks, and I wrote the keywords out, and some of them I don't even remember writing out, to be honest. It was such a kind of fluid experience. A lot of it felt like it was channeled, you know, and it kind of just came through me. So when I use this, it really does feel like I have a direct link to the Morrigan, and I don't use this daily. Every few weeks maybe I'll pick it up and ask a question, and I find it's a very personal deck, very powerful deck. I would print this straight away and have this because it's just really important to my practice. Another deck that I would order pretty much immediately is a very special deck, and it's a deck that I haven't actually used yet. It is new in my collection. I've had it for a few weeks, but I haven't actually opened it up yet. I wanted to do a walkthrough and I've not yet filmed that. But this is the Starlight Illuminated Tarot by Herze, and it comes in this beautiful bag. I first saw this on Jen's Balanced Tarot's channel like last year sometime, and I wanted it since then, but the cost was expensive coming from the States, and it's obviously an independent deck. It's paintings by Herze, and it is the Rider-Waite-Smith. These are the backs. We've got this beautiful sort of celestial backs, and then these are the paintings. They don't have the names on them, but they are just utterly exquisite, and this is just, I think, a work of art. So I haven't used this yet, but it's so special and I cannot wait to use it. I think I'm going to use it a lot because the Rider-Waite-Smith is such an important part of my tarot practice. As you can see, it's all in order, so I'm going to have to go back and put it back in order again for the walkthrough when I do it. Look at that hermit, oh my gosh. So Carol has various versions of this deck. This is the one with all the starlight, obviously. I think this is just a masterpiece, in all honesty, and worth every penny, even though it took me some time to get it. I'm absolutely thrilled to have this, and I would have to get it again straight away because I've been wanting it for so long, and if it disappeared now, I would probably just cry. I mean, I want all of my decks. Like, I'm looking at them and it makes me feel sad that I might not have some of them for a while, especially some that I recently picked up, you know, but I think I have to like be a little bit controlled with myself, and although there are some decks that I really would love to say I'd need to pick that up straight away, I have a budget, and I'm sure I'm pretty much over my budget already by, you know, showing all of these decks and saying I'd pick them up again. So the truth is I probably wouldn't be able to buy them all again, but this is what I would want to buy straight away. In fact, I'd want the whole lot straight away. This is such a hard one. Oh dear, it's so hard. There are more that I'd want to get straight away, but I just don't think I would be able to. And oh, I can't justify it. It's like I can't justify it. I'm finding this really hard, actually. It feels very challenging to go through your decks and like say that this is what you'd buy as and when, because I know that in like a day or two I'd have different answers. Not different necessarily, but I'd add some in maybe, you know, because I'm just looking at them all, the ones I didn't mention, and I just feel sad. Oh. Really what I've mentioned here are the decks that I use the most, like the decks that are on my reading table over there or over there, and the ones that I pull off the shelf really regularly. These are the ones that I would have to get. I'd have to get this deck too. This is the Mother of Crows. I talked about this a lot when I first started my channel. I used this a lot in the latter half of last year because it works so well in that sort of wintry season. But it is very more organic, and I do use this for readings with the Morrigan. So for that reason, I would definitely have to pick it up. It's quite a confronting deck, I think, but it is powerful and beautiful. And I would need this deck. Absolutely would need this deck straight away. And one more deck, the Dark Days. I think for working with the moon phases, this is a really important deck for me, and because, as I said, I do work with the moon phases a lot, this is really one that I would just have to have. I do love this deck, and I have other decks like this. I have quite a lot of moon themed decks really. This is one I would have to have straight away. I think I would have to get this one as well straight away. But I think maybe what I'm confronted with is like my own mortality. Now this is going to sound really morbid, but I think it's that idea that you can't hang on to it all. And when I die, I'm not going to be able to take any of them with me. That frightens me. And I feel kind of sad about that. You know, I'm worried about not being able to take my tarot decks with me when I die. I think maybe that's why this prompt pokes at me a little bit, but it really does get me thinking about more serious things, like my own mortality. And I know that sounds really morbid, so I'm sorry if that is upsetting for anyone, I really hope not. But yeah, it really does make me think seriously about that, because I want to take them with me. So I think I've laboured over this prompt for long enough now. I have definitely confronted some sort of shadowy, sticky feelings around it. But yeah, it feels good to be able to really narrow it down, and this is really narrowed down, trust me. I had to be really super controlled. I would love to hear if you've done this tag. I've seen quite a few of them, but I probably haven't seen them all, so do let me know below if you've done one. And if you enjoyed my responses, then please do like the video and give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to share it with anyone, that would also be lovely. And if you haven't yet subscribed and you'd like to see more from me around tarot, magic, witchcraft, spirituality, those kinds of topics, then please do think about subscribing. And while you're subscribing, don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos like this one. So thank you again to Brian from Pappa Squirrel for creating this prompt and inspiring the tag. I've really enjoyed it. It's been powerful. Thank you again for watching. I've really enjoyed sharing these decks with you. I hope that you are staying well and safe, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah. Whoa, whoa.